The Legend of LUNGALUNGA. Every day, the old woman of Losu village on New Island fed her pig, but one day she forgot to feed him. The pig was very hungry. So the next day, when she went to feed him, the pig gobbled her up. From that day, everybody hid at the sight of the pig. They called him LUNGALUNGA. Everybody had to contribute food for the pig, otherwise he would start eating people. Everyone was terrified and so frightened that they decided to leave the village. They all sailed away in canoes, but they left an old woman behind who was so ugly that they were frightened of her ugliness. The people headed for Tabar Island. The sad old woman went and lived in a cave. Only at night did she come out to find food. In the end, she married a small bird who could obtain food for her more easily. After a year, she gave birth to 2 boys, and when they were old enough to protect themselves, she told them of LUNGALUNGA, who gobbled and ate people. LUNGALUNGA now lived in a cave. The boys took their weapons, consisting of spears only, and killed LUNGALUNGA. They cut off a few bristles from his neck and tied them to a bundle. They threw the bundle into the sea and the current carried it to Tabar Island. The people who had left Losu many years ago were fishing. Suddenly, they saw the pig's hair drifting towards them. They recognized it to be the hair of LUNGALUNGA, and so they decided to return to their village. The brothers, seeing the people paddle towards their old home, stood firmly on the beach. As the people came closer to the beach, the brothers were slowly sinking into the sand while their mother turned into stone. When the people stepped out of their canoes, the brothers had completely disappeared and only some blood remained on the sand. This was the end of the heroes of Losu.
The Crocodile. My village, called Palikimet Pililo, on the shores of Solomon Sea, is not very far from Cambrian, a town in the south of New Britain Island. There are about 530 people in my village. I have 1 brother and 2 sisters. My grandfather Tassi looked after me a lot when I was a little boy. Nearly every night I used to sit beside him on the seashore. He told me stories about the birds and the animals. Many centuries ago, a very large crocodile lived in the sea near our village. The people knew that he was there, but one day a woman who was washing a small baby in the sea was careless and went too far into the water. The crocodile took her and the baby and carried them down to his cave under the sea, where he ate the woman and swallowed the baby whole. The next day, as he laid on the warm sandy beach, the crocodile felt a terrible pain. Suddenly he started coughing. He gave one huge cough, and the baby boy came out of his mouth. The crocodile was very surprised. He had never seen such a baby before. Perhaps it was a new kind of a baby crocodile. He loved the baby and looked after him very well. Every day he brought him fresh fish to eat. He also brought coconuts that he found floating in the sea, and he opened them with his big teeth. The baby loved the milk and the meat from the coconuts. The crocodile played with the baby and carried him about on his back. The people of the village were amazed to see the large prints of the crocodile's feet and the small prints of the baby's feet on so many different places along the beach. All the children of the village were questioned about this strange thing. But who would be silly enough to run about with a crocodile? The children knew nothing. The mystery worried the old man and the hunters of the tribe. It was a bad thing for the children to be friendly with the crocodiles because they might not like to kill crocodiles when they grew up to be hunters, and it would make great changes in the customs of the people. So the young hunters hid in the bushes along the beach to watch for the child and the crocodile. A few hours later, a frightened man ran into the village, screaming, "I've seen them! I've seen them! They are near the first traps. A little boy is riding on the back of a huge crocodile." "You lie!" shouted the chief. "No, I'm not lying," said the young man. "Come and see for yourself. The boy sometimes sits in the crocodile's mouth and sometimes scratches his belly with a shell. Come and see it yourself." "Hurry," said the chief, "but be very careful. There must be magic there." All the people in the village ran after the young man. They soon came to the shore and were amazed. There was the huge crocodile lying in the warm, shallow water, and there, sitting near him and splashing in the water, was a little baby boy. The wise old man planned an attack. They couldn't throw spears. They might hit the boy. Instead, they all rushed down the beach, yelling and screaming. The crocodile was half asleep. The loud noise frightened him, and he ran to the deep water and swam away quickly. Suddenly, he thought about his son, but it was too late. One of the men picked up the boy and ran away. The crocodile tried to get his son back, but a few well-armed spears hit him and made him hurry back to the deep water. The little boy struggled to get free, but the men held him tight. The crocodile watched, but he was too badly injured to help his son. Night after night, the crocodile left the sea and crept into the village, but he could not find the boy. Early every morning and in the evening when the sun was going down, he came to the beach and called the baby. He taught all the other crocodiles to call the baby's name. Even today, you can hear the crocodiles calling out the baby's name, Taburu.
GEMBIGE the frog. Minge was an old woman. She lived with her granddaughter Dini in a house near a creek. One afternoon, after they had returned from their garden, Minge asked Dini to go to the creek and get some water for cooking the evening meal. Dini got her bamboo container and went off to the creek. GEMBIGE, a large old frog, was sleeping on a rock on the bank of the creek. He woke up when Dini came near the creek. GEMBIGE began to think very hard. "How can I capture this small girl?" he asked himself. Just before Dini started to fill her bamboo container, old GEMBIGE said to her, "My daughter, you have a spider crawling over your bottom. Bend down and I'll remove it for you." As soon as Dini bent down, old GEMBIGE jumped behind her and swallowed her. Old GEMBIGE could hardly move because the small girl was so heavy inside his stomach. He sat down and went to sleep on his favorite rock. Minge waited and waited for Dini to return with the water. She called out to Dini, but she never had any answer. She angrily walked down to the creek, but of course she could not find Dini anywhere. But Minge saw the big frog sleeping on the rock. "GEMBIGE," she said, "wake up. I want to ask you some questions. Have you seen my granddaughter anywhere? If you can, tell me where she is. I will give you a nice reward. But if you cannot tell me, I'll cut you with my knife." GEMBIGE became very frightened. "Yes, I have seen Dini," answered GEMBIGE. "She has gone into the bush to play with her friends." Minge did not believe GEMBIGE, and she moved closer to the old frog. "What is it that you have under your stomach?" asked Minge. "Be careful. I think it is a snake. Quick, turn over so that I can kill the snake." GEMBIGE did not know that Minge was tricking him, so he turned over. Then Minge quickly cut open the old frog's stomach. Dini jumped out and was very happy to see her grandmother again. Dini then got her bamboo container, filled it with water, and they both returned to their house to prepare their meal. Today, when grandparents send small children to the creek to get water, the children always refuse to go alone because they believe old GEMBIGE is still there.
Creation of the Bird of Paradise. A beautiful young woman lived alone in the forest. One day she was sitting outside her house just before dark when she heard someone blowing a flute from a distant hill. She was greatly attracted by the beautiful music, so one day she set out to find who the musician was. When she reached the place on the hill, she discovered a newly built house. There was nobody in it, but there were signs that it was inhabited. She went inside and went to lie down in a dark corner. She waited a long time. It was late in the evening when she had someone enter the house. She hid in the corner and saw that it was a handsome young man. When the man searched for his tobacco in the corner, his hand touched the woman and he was very surprised. He lit the fire and saw that it was a beautiful young woman. He was very happy. They hugged each other and they got married. They lived happily until the woman became pregnant. One day, a messenger from a distant village brought news of a big feast. The man prepared for the feast, and when the time of departure came, he planted a small banana tree and said to his wife, "As long as this banana remains short, I am still at the feast. But when it begins to grow, you will know that I am on my way home." While the husband was away, the woman lived with her giant animal, who helped her in her daily work. One day when they were returning from the garden, they were surprised to see smoke rising from their house. The woman was afraid and asked her giant animal to go and investigate. He saw that a red-skinned old woman was sitting in the house by the fireplace. He returned to the pregnant woman to tell her what he had seen, but the old woman followed him secretly and discovered her hiding place. At first, the pregnant woman was afraid, but the red-skinned old stranger greeted her kindly, and so they all went back to the house. Before going to sleep, the old woman asked her host to come with her the following morning in order to help her climb a tree and collect some young leaves from it. The woman said that in her pregnant stage she was unable to climb a tree. Then the old woman threatened to kill her if she refused to come with her, so finally she agreed. The next morning they set out on their journey, and by midday they reached the tree. The pregnant woman climbed up and collected all the young leaves she could, but there remained a few leaves at the very top which she was afraid to pick. She thought that the thin branch might break and she would fall to her death. While she was trying to get near to the leaves very carefully, the old woman spat into her hand and spoke an incantation. Then the tree grew up and up until it reached the sky, and the woman could not come down anymore. When the time had come for her to give birth, she climbed down to a thicker branch, and there she delivered a baby boy. While she was on the tree with the baby, an eagle came flying, who watched them closely. When the woman woke up the next morning, she saw that the eagle had built a beautiful house in the tree and had filled it with food, water, and firewood. After living off the eagle's food for a week, she asked him whether he was a human being, but he remained silent. Then one day she pretended to be asleep. Then she saw that the eagle stepped out of his feathers and he became a handsome young man. Then she suddenly seized his hand. She asked him whether he had a place to live on the ground. He said he had, and he helped her and the child to come down from the tree. Then the woman told him that he must never mention to anybody that he had found her on a tree. If he ever did say so, she would do something strange. The family lived happily in their new home on the ground. One day, when there was heavy rain, the mother left the child with the father so that she could go to the garden to collect some food. During her absence, the baby boy cried and excreted on the floor of the house. The father felt annoyed with the child's mother for leaving him, but because of the warning she had given him, he said nothing. When the woman arrived, she dropped the string bag of cocoa on the excreta. As she was feeding the pigs, her hand touched the excreta and she grew angry with the husband. During the argument, the man forgot his promise and he told her that she should have remained on top of the tree. As soon as she had this, she told the father and the son to watch her. Then she turned into a beautiful bird of paradise in front of their eyes. Her grass cat became beautiful long-tailed feathers. The father and the son did not know what to do, so they too changed themselves into birds of paradise, but they do not have the beautiful tail feathers.
The first man of WORIS. The day was fine. Tuva, a hunter from a village near Wewak in the Sepik district, decided to hunt wild pig. He took his weapons and his 2 dogs and set off. Soon he trapped a small pig by the riverbank. His dogs speedily killed it. At midday he was hungry. As he finished his meal, the sky became very black. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. He sheltered in a huge hollow tree by the riverbank. The food made him drowsy and he fell into a deep sleep. It rained heavily. The water rose quickly and washed the hollow log down the river. Tuva awoke and found himself far out at sea. He could see on the horizon a small island. He broke a branch off the tree and used it as a paddle. Soon he reached the beach. He was very tired, so he crawled into the shade of some trees and slept. When Tuva woke up, he saw that he was on the edge of a well-kept garden. He took some food from a hut there and crept away. Later, a woman came to collect some sugarcane from the hut. "Who has been here?" she said to herself. "Someone has taken some food. I must catch the thief." She hid in a bundle of sugarcane and loosely tied a thin rope around it. Tuva came back at sunset to take some cane. When he pulled at the bundle, it fell apart and the woman jumped out. She gave Tuva such a fright that he fell over. "What are you? Are you a devil?" she cried. "No, I'm a man. My name is Tuva. I'm very hungry. Please let me have some cane." "A man?" said the woman. "I've never seen a man before." "But you're not a young girl," Tuva said. "You must have seen some men." "No, there are only people like me and the black flying foxes, our husbands on this island," replied the woman. "There must be men," said Tuva. "Where are your children?" "There are no men and there are no children," said the woman. "We have lived on this island for many centuries, and we have never got any older than we are now. We don't know where we came from. We grow our food, build our houses, and look after our flying fox husbands." Tuva talked to her for a long time. He explained that there were men and women and children in his country over the sea. At last the woman said, "My name is Tema. It seems a very good idea to have a husband to do all the heavy work. But there are other women on this island. What will happen when they find you? What will happen when the flying foxes find you? They are very dangerous." She thought for a moment. "I know. I'll hide you in my house. Quickly, get into this big balloon bag and I'll cover you over with vegetables." Tuva was a big man and it was very hard work to carry him to her house. She got there just before the flying foxes arrived from the mainland. She hid Tuva in a corner and covered him with skins. "I smell something strange," said her flying fox. "What is it?" "Oh, it's nothing," she said. "It's only the skins of some animals I killed before sunset. You don't like meat, so why worry about it?" She fed the flying fox and he soon flew away. "We'll marry secretly," she said, "because I'm afraid of the other women." "Very well, Tema," said Tuva. He called on the ancient gods to witness that he would always stay with Tema and look after her. One day, Tuva was making a rope. As he worked, the end of the rope fell through a hole in the floor. A woman nearby noticed it moving and pulled it. Tuva thought an animal was playing with the end of the rope. He pulled it back. The puzzled woman said to herself, "What is happening in this house? Tema is at work. I saw her in the garden. Someone is in her house." She then went inside and saw Tuva. She was amazed and asked him the same questions that Tema had asked him before. They were still talking when Tema returned. "Now everyone will know about Tuva because Sally can't keep a secret," said Tema. "Why should we keep him a secret?" was Sally's reply. "Why don't we tell the other women and see what happens? I must say, I too would like Tuva as a husband instead of my flying fox." "Very well, go and call them all. We must hurry and decide what to do before the flying foxes come," Tema said. The women met in Tema's house. After listening to Tuva's story about the customs of his own people, they decided that they would all like to marry him. But first they had to find a way to kill the flying foxes. Each of the women prepared a little house and decorated it with flowers. When the flying foxes came, the women asked them to go inside and have a look. As soon as they were inside, the women threw the houses into the sea. The last flying fox heard the screams of his friends. He guessed what was happening. "Spare me," he cried. "I will tell you all I know." Sally pulled him out of the box. He said, "We brought you to this island many centuries ago when you were still small. We looked after you and worked magic upon you so you would not grow older. We did this so you would always be able to feed us. Then we would be able to lead a lazy life. Now you have seen a man and you do not want us." "Yes, we have seen a man and want to marry him. We want to live like the women in his country. We want to have our own children," said Sally. "We gave you everlasting youth and beauty. When you have children, you will get old and you'll be sorry," said the flying fox. "No, we won't," shouted the women. "We'll give our beauty to our children. The more children we have, the more beauty we'll give, and the happier we will be." Sally loosened her grip for a moment. The flying fox struggled free and flew away, screaming that he would take revenge on the man. As was the custom in those days, Tuva married the 12 women. Soon several children were born and everybody was happy. They forgot about the threat of the flying fox. One evening, Tuva was walking along the top of the steep cliff by the sea. He heard a loud beating noise. Looking around, he saw a black cloud of flying foxes coming straight at him. Tuva ran, but in his haste he slipped on some loose stones and fell down the face of the cliff. His screams brought all the women out of their houses. The flying foxes circled overhead and called to him, "Now where is your man? Now what have you gained?" They clapped their wings in joy and flew away. But the children grew up. The women were happy. They had lost their husband, but his children were strong. It did not take very long for them to grow into strong young men and beautiful women.
The GALIP Nut Sisters. There were once 2 brothers who lived all alone. They were very hard-working men. When they worked in their gardens, they would start at sunrise and work until sunset. If they went hunting or fishing, they would never return home until they had enough meat to last them a long time. In front of the brothers' house, a GALIP tree was growing. On the whole tree, there were only 2 nuts, but they were special nuts. One day when the brothers went off to work in their gardens, the 2 nuts started to giggle, then started to laugh loudly. Next, the 2 nuts changed into 2 pretty sisters. The sisters then began to clean up the brothers' house. They worked and laughed and sang all day. They knew what time the brothers would return. So just before sunset, the sisters changed themselves into nuts again. When the brothers returned home, they were very surprised to see that their house was very clean and very neat. They wondered who had helped them. They looked around, but of course, they could not find anyone. The next morning, the brothers again left for their gardens. Again, the 2 GALIP Nut sisters cleaned up the brothers' house. When they had finished, one said to the other, "Let's really give the brothers a nice surprise. They are such hard workers that they are always very tired when they return home. Let's cook a big meal for them. We must find out who is doing all these good things for us," one brother said to the other. So the next morning, the brothers pretended to go to their gardens. They walked into the bush, but instead of going to their gardens, they quietly walked back to their house and hid themselves near their house. They were very surprised to see the 2 pretty sisters hard at work inside the house. "What will we do?" asked one of the brothers. "I think we had better go and ask the girls who they are," replied the other. "But we must be careful that we do not frighten them and make them run away." So silently, the 2 brothers moved towards their house. They stood in the doorway so that the sisters could not escape. "Why have you come to help us?" asked one of the brothers. "Please do not hurt us," the sisters cried out. "We have done nothing wrong." "We will not hurt you," answered one of the brothers. "We only want to know why are you helping us?" The sisters were very frightened, but they managed to tell the brothers that they wanted to help them because they were such working men. This made the brothers very happy, and they asked the sisters to stay with them and become their wives. The sisters agreed.
The little people of BULUAN Island. Many years ago, the Mapo people lived on BULUAN Island. These Mapo people were very unusual. They were very small, about the same size as a small animal. But the Mapo people were very good and very kind. They liked to help ordinary people. One day, a man began to clear a large piece of land to make a garden. When night came, the man hadn't finished his work. He decided to continue his work the next morning and return to his home. During the night, many Mapo people went to his land and finished clearing it. When the man saw his land the next morning, he was very surprised. "I wonder who has been helping me," the man thought. He started to break up the ground. Again, he did not finish all his work. But again, when he returned the next morning, all the garden had been broken up. The man still did not know that it was the Mapo who were helping him, so he decided to try to find out who was doing his work. During the day, he started to plant his garden. When night came, he had not completed all the planting, but he did not return to his home. Instead, he decided to hide in the bush. During the night, the Mapo came again to help him. He was very surprised to see so many little people. They were very happy and sang and joked and told stories while they were working. The man ran back to his village. He told all the village people about these wonderful little people. "We will never have to work again," he told the village people. "These little people will do all our work for us." All over BULUAN Island, men and women began to leave their work half completed. Every night, the Mapo would come and complete the work. This continued for a long time, but the BULUAN people grew lazier and lazier. Finally, they would do no work at all. When this happened, the Mapo decided to leave BULUAN Island forever. One night, all of the Mapo met together and marched down to the beach. They then swam across to another island. From that day, the BULUAN people have had no helpers.